And it is Thursday, the 17th of May. Who imagined that we would manage to live long enough to see the 17th of May in 2018? And of course, you guys are children, and for me, it's with all the years behind me, it just amazes me that every day is a new experience in this realm. I keep thinking, oh, I'm going to go to sleep tonight and wake up in heaven tomorrow with, all those evangelicals who are waking up in heaven. Anyway, it is a beautiful Thursday here in the Midwest, and I have got Charlie and Barret as part of the triumvirate, the Course in Miracles triumvirate. How are you guys this morning?
Beautiful. Thank you.
Doing great. Doing great. Yeah, your little intro reminded me of the South Park movie where all these people are dying and they're going to heaven and they're all outside of the pearly gates. And there's St. Peter, and he's, he said, so, this is good news for some of you and not so good news for some of you. And the good news is that the correct religion is, he says, Mormons. Oh, Mormons, you get to go in heaven. Everyone else, sorry, your ticket down to hell.
Boy, that would really cause an uproar in half of the Trump administration, because those guys there, they think Mitt Romney and his Mormon connections are satanic at the very least. That's quite interesting. I was expecting you to say Scientology, though.
Well, they each get their whole they get their whole planet when they go on. So, that's a pretty good deal.
That is. It is. Well, we are looking at the whole idea of separation. And for those who have been doing the daily lesson, today's lesson is number 137. And it confronts that idea of separation beautifully. It says, when I am healed, I am not healed alone. And that really puts the power back where it's supposed to be, which is that each and every one of us are an integral part of a perfect creation. And that creation cannot reestablish itself until all of us are rejoined in that state of perfection. So heaven itself is awaiting our ending our resistance to being a part of something great and magnificent.
Yeah, and that's really sweet, and that's what this work is all about. I was just talking to someone, and I said it's like we all think Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall and he's broken apart into all these pieces. And what we're learning in the Course is he's still sitting up there, right? Humpty Dumpty never fell off the wall, right? Humpty Dumpty is still whole. Well, what that means is that even though it looks like we've broken into all these many millions and even billions of different pieces that we call bodies, and we think that we are that body, that in truth, we've never left the wholeness of God. We've never left that truth of heaven. But we're having this extensive dream that seems very real, that is saying the opposite. And the Course is, it's a mind training course. It's something that we all do individually, even though sometimes we join together to talk about it or study it. But we work on realizing that deeper truth. And how does that work? Well, we let go of the false ideas of separation, as you just said so clearly, Chris. And this title of this lesson is perfect, right? When I'm healed, I'm not healed alone. What is Jesus saying here? He's saying that we're not alone, that we can't be alone. Anytime we have any sort of experience, it's actually part of that collective oneness. And so we're either having one of two experiences, an experience that seems to reinforce the idea of being apart. There's a lot of those kinds of experiences here in the world. Or we're having an experience that leads us to realize that that is not the truth and that we're still safe at home in heaven, just having this dream that we're starting to wake up from. And all of the Course's work and workbook lessons is designed to help us to move more and more into that experience of knowing that. And so it's the worthy work that we're doing here as we do our forgiveness lessons.
Yes, and I'm reminded too how, Barret, you and I were talking the last Good News with Barret and Charlie session about the pane of glass that Jesus talks about, right? The shattered pane of glass, much like your shattered Humpty Dumpty egg, right? And every one of those little particles of eggshell and little tiny bit of yolk that's splattered all over the place thinks it's separate one from another. And the realization of any one piece, right, that it never fell, that the egg never cracked or broke, is the recognition that all pieces are one. And that's the beautiful, again, the beautiful work that we have going on for ourselves here, is to recognize in our brother, this beauty and this grace and this Son of God in each one of our brothers, and to know that we are just one. That is the healing that takes place for us here. I had just before we came on, I just read that little quote from, Chris picked out a workbook lesson here, lesson 137. When I am healed, I am not healed alone. But it led me right back to what I read this morning in chapter 24. Forget not that the healing of God's Son is all the world is for. And, that's it. It sounds so simple, and we make it so complex. But in truth, that's all it really is for, to recognize we never fell off the wall. The pane of glass never shattered. Those are stories that we've told ourselves, not the truth. And we can awaken to that truth of that oneness. That's the beauty of this.
Very true. Yeah, the lesson goes on to say sickness is isolation, for it seems to keep oneself apart from all the rest, to suffer what the others do not feel. So it's in this idea of uniqueness. I am unique. I am so separate and so apart and so unique that I have a disease that medical science hasn't even discovered. They haven't even figured it out. I am a test subject for this huge medical advance. It's all about me. And that's what I find so insidious about the way the ego operates, is that it raises the standard of meanness with every occurrence in our lives. It really is so completely focused on the idea of isolation. And within that, I think that we as students of the course really have to begin to live in a state of extreme acceptance. So no matter how much revulsion your ego has for the guy down at the end of the street, I think we have to drag the ego back and tame it and really reach out to the lepers and not be afraid of them. That was what Jesus did. He went and would walk with the lepers. He would hang out with them. And everybody else was screaming about, oh, those people are unclean. Half of Christianity is concerned about, the unclean people in the world and how we have to separate ourselves from them. But the truth is, we have to jump in the swimming pool where everybody is collectively experiencing oneness by, that experience of being in the water together. That's what God is. God is a huge swimming pool. And we're all in that pool, and we have to be willing to participate in that collective experience.
Yeah. I remember hearing someone in a course group describe it as though we all think that we're an individual grape in a bunch of grapes, but in fact we're all grape juice. And there's this fear of letting go of that individual idea, that individual grapeness, right, or grape skin, so to speak, and to melt into that oneness. The other word you used a little bit before this, Chris, I really liked, the meanness, right? I mean, you could say it two ways, me-ness or meanness, right? Because the idea of being me leads to that meanness. The idea of being me leads to fear, leads to anger, it leads to attack. All of these things that only happen when all of a sudden there's something else. this meanness really reinforces otherness. And we get this sort of Newtonian worldview, right? What's the Newtonian worldview? Well, there's object A, there's object B, object A impacts object B. So there's all these concrete ideas. Well, what we're shifting into is really more in alignment with what some of the new science is showing us, right? There's a lot of kind of mind-blowing ideas in quantum mechanics and quantum physics. We start to realize that objects are not really separate, even if they're separated by millions of light years. One can change and it affects another very far away. An object can be in two states simultaneously, right? Some of these ideas that our intellectual mind kind of struggles to understand. But really what it's doing is it's showing us that things are not what they seem. This physical world is actually only here for one purpose. And maybe not everyone in the science world knows this, but what the Course is teaching us very clearly is its purpose is to demonstrate separation. And it does it over and over and over again. Now, we don't need to see that, even though that's what it was made for. We can see the seeming proof of separation, and we can say, I'm using this to wake up instead. I don't want to use this to reinforce my sleep. I want to use this to reinforce my freedom. And then what happens is that our life becomes this classroom. Every day we wake up, we realize everything that's unfolding for us is unfolding for us to learn the lessons that would be helpful for us to learn. We all have deep attachments to this idea of being an individual, and they show up really strong in some parts of our lives. There might be some parts of our life where we really kind of get, oh yeah, I can get this idea. What I am is eternal and loving and true, and it's actually not this form in the world of time and space. But then there are this one thing that happens, right? Oh, that person who really gets under my skin. Maybe it's a politician, maybe it's a family member, maybe it's a coworker. And all of a sudden, we're back in the fear, we're back in the anger, we're back in the judgment. And that just means that that's where our lesson lies, right? Our lesson lies right in that thing that really pushes our button. And we just practice over and over again using these concepts, shifting out of the fear and back into the love, shifting out of the meanness or the meanness, and shifting back into the idea of sameness, which leads us to an experience ultimately of knowing that we are one with them. So the more that we look at the world like this, the more that it becomes that opportunity for us to choose kindness. And each and every opportunity, even in the face of people's unkindness, even in the face of people's insanity, we can be the ones that remember that sanity is a choice that we can make.
I love that too. This whole concept of this lesson, that we're not healed alone. So this change in the way you're talking about, Barret, this change in perception, change in recognizing that the reality we've created isn't the real reality. There is another reality, and the healing of that thinking, for any one of us, if we start to see it, we start to understand it, we start to practice it, as you're talking about. As this lesson says, we're not being healed alone. It's the entire brotherhood, because the egg never cracked. The egg never left the wall, right? The entire brotherhood that's waking up. Each shard of glass in that tiny piece of, the tiny shard that broke in Jesus's metaphor, we're all healing together. And that's the beauty of this. So the aha moments for any of us, because we are all connected, are just one thing, is happening for all of us. And that's just such a beautiful thing. And again, it's that recognition that our specialness that Chris was talking about, the specialness that we've created in our little story about the broken eggshell, it's just not real, and we can start to see ourselves in that meanness. It's our story as a specialist, which means I'm separate from somebody else. I'm separate from everybody else, and when I start to recognize that that's not true, that's the beginning of this healing. And it's such a, it's so clear when you start to see it, it becomes so clear what I'm trying to say, the recognition, because it's felt intuitively, it's felt in the heart. And that's where the clarity is, that's where the connection is, in our heart, and in our recognition of our brother, in being one. Forgiveness, all those separation story. It's a beautiful opportunity for us. And with each one we create, separate, story of separation, we have an opportunity to forgive it. And the catching of ourselves over and over and over again, making up those silly stories, realizing we're doing our meanness, our special thing. We think we're a piece of that eggshell. Each time we catch ourselves doing that and going back to the other true way of thinking, thinking in reality, thinking in oneness, thinking with our higher power, thinking with Jesus, thinking with Holy Spirit, gives us an opportunity to heal the Son of God. Oh, beautiful.
That it is. As the lesson goes on to say, it states, and as you let yourself be healed. Now, that's a very important subtlety here. It's not as you are healing yourself. It is, and as you let yourself be healed. That in itself, I think, is a real point of recognition as to where the power is and how the work is done. And it goes on to say, you see all those around you, or who cross your mind, or whom you touch, or those whom seem to have no contact with you, healed along with you. Perhaps you will not recognize them all, nor realize how great your offering to all the world is when you let healing come to you. So there again, it reiterates that idea that there is no state of separation that ever could possibly exist. And this is something that we really have to reinforce over and over and over again in our consciousness, is that the work we're doing may seem to be all about me, but the actual response that we are eliciting in this material world is that every time we let go and allow ourselves to be healed, it lifts up everybody else on the planet. And that is such a profound idea compared to the smallness of this concept of personal healing. It's all about me. Because the truth is, if you want to do something for those starving children in Ethiopia, if you want to do something for those, people who are rejected and neglected in Zimbabwe or Estonia or wherever on the planet, whatever it is that catches your attention and calls upon you to experience a desire for compassion, you have to realize that is your mission here. That is your journey here. And you can accept healing on behalf of all those who are unhealed. And you may not witness the actual manifestation of that, but you are participating in a process that is so beyond your limited sense of self that it takes you to such a higher way of life and a higher level of perception that it makes life truly worthwhile. We look at all of our trivial activities and all the pursuits that we have in this material world, and we begin to realize how there is no satisfaction within those things. But once we tap into the collective that we are a part of, then all of a sudden there is an immense sense of gratification from all the work that we actually are doing.
Yeah. One piece builds upon another piece, builds upon another piece. And another way of saying this idea that we're really focusing in on today is that we can look at this physical world as though it's a hologram. And what does that mean? It really means that we are all one, but it seems that we're broken into separate pieces. And because of that, every time any piece is changed, the whole is changed. And every time the whole is changed, all the pieces are changed too. So one of the reasons that this is a useful idea is that it really helps us, because as we're doing this forgiveness work, as we're doing this healing work, oftentimes people have the experience, well, I did some healing around this, but my life still looks the same. I still have the same problems, I still have the same anger, I still have the same frustration. I thought I was healed. Well, because of the way that this healing works, we never know where the effect is going to be. And You know, sometimes he says this, perhaps you will not recognize them at all. You don't know exactly where the healing is going. You don't know exactly whose life it's affecting. You know, maybe the healing is undoing World War III, and so we never have to go through that again. But your life looks the same, so you're feeling kind of bummed out about it. Well, you know, it's like we can't understand all these things, but luckily we don't really have to. We can just trust that it's all happening in the way that's the highest good. We can trust that Holy Spirit has it all figured out, and we don't need to see more than we can see. And what I would also say is that there is definitely a gradual sense of more and more peace as we do this work. Whether all of our healings seem to have changes in our life or not, we do find more and more happiness, and that is the real benefit here. If we can live a life where we are more and more at peace, where we can't really lose our sense of connection to that wholeness and our knowledge of God's love, I mean, that's a pretty big gift. So luckily, this is a gift that's assured to all of us as we do this work. We're not going to miss out on it. It's inevitable. And really our work is in just continuing to practice. We just continue to practice with everything that shows up, and the result is guaranteed. So that's a pretty good deal when I think about it.
Yeah, and I'm looking, Chris, too, at this, and Barret, you know, at the tail end of this lesson in the section here, when I am healed, I am not healed alone, and I would share my healing with the world, that sickness may be banished from the mind, God's one Son, who is my only self. So again, it's just this recognition again that this is all going on in our minds, right? You know, and if I think I'm a separate piece of the eggshell or a shard of glass, got a mind that's got, you know, it's got a story going on all about Charlie. But when I recognize there is just one Son of God, and that healing is taking place for the entire, you know, pane of glass, the entire egg, Humpty Dumpty, you know, and that's the beautiful thing about this. And we, you know, Barret, I really liked your touching on that concept of you don't know really where the healing's taking place, because, you know, Jesus is telling us in the Course that healing is taking place. We are awakening from this dream. You know, we never truly left heaven. We're just in a dream, and we are awakening from that dream state. And healing is the what's the synonym for that? You know, we are healing, and what's taking place. And so when we, you know, actually working one-on-one with somebody doing healing, you're right. We don't always see the results, but we don't know that it's. We do know, you know, being taught anyway. It's taking place anyway, so it doesn't make a difference. It really allows us to helps us take our specialness, our meanness out of that healing process.
Yes, and that's what it's really all about at the end of the day, is recognizing whatever little chunk of perfection we imagine in somebody else. Well, it's a shared thing, that same chunk of perfection that we're seeing in another is a reflection of an awakening to that same perfection within ourselves. So the rewards of doing the work are really something that has to be examined on a day-to-day basis, because we receive so much and our effort is so little, so minimal compared to the amazing outpouring of love and healing and transformation that comes through us and is supported by God itself. So it puts everything into the right perspective. And we are winding up now at 10:56 a.m. I know you guys have got adventures that you've got to go pursue. So anything that you need to share with us, Barret, before we shut it down for the end of the day?
Well, I did have one more comment to make, since you mentioned kind of that chunk of wholeness. It reminded me before we started here today, we were talking about dark chocolate. So I figured that's a dark chocolate chunk of perfection and wholeness that we're all coming into. So
Or chunko cheese.
And it is perfection. There is no doubt about that. So that's,
Well, I just wanted to add, I'm really glad to be back with you guys. I missed several Thursdays in a row, and it's really sweet being back with you. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
yeah, it's really awesome having you here, Charlie, and Barrett and myself. We are an amazing triumvirate.
So yeah, as far as other announcements, in a few weeks, June 10th, we are going to be joining along with Tom Kinley, who is another great course teacher, for a Course in Miracles experience. No, it's called Exploring the Course. It's a Sunday afternoon in Glenview. So all the details are on my website, barretthedin.com, and I think they're probably listed on the miraclewithin.org too, which is the great site that Chris is running. So it'd be great to have you there, 1 to 5 on Sunday afternoon. Come join us.
There's a Barret and Charlie presentation. Good news of Barret and Charlie on June
2nd. And then June 16th in Milwaukee. Yeah.
Busy Cowboys.
Yeah.
You know, we're like a virus, the whole bunch of us, you know. We're spreading love and joy instead of sniffling and sneezing. So we're going to have to imagine ourselves as being a virus unto the world.
Beautiful, I think.
Healing virus. There we go.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
See you guys in 1 week. Have a great week.
All right. You too. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.